Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah Anytime, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, as always, it's wonderful to have you along. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. When you do those things, it pushes up the algorithm and makes it possible for more people to be able to find out about the podcast. Every now and then I'll get an email from someone who says, I just found this podcast. It's been around for 6 years. Just found out about it. You know, I went to the beginning and I'm listening to all of them. As the Eagles said, this could be heaven or this could be hell. And we have a sponsor this week, sponsored by Beth and Matti Friedman, in memory of our father, Rabbi Milton Nordlicht, Zasal, of Kew Gardens Hills, New York. Adam Choshev Ad Ma'od. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our sponsors, because you make this podcast possible. And when we run out of sponsorships, then I'm just going to sit here and talk to myself. And by the way, I do that all the time anyway. I'm just constantly talking to myself. And an hour a week, we film it. But, I mean, theoretically, we could have the Rabbi Orlofsky channel. You know, there was a movie called The Truman Show, where this kid was abandoned in a movie studio, and they adopted him, and they made an entire show about his life, and they just showed him 24 hours a day, The Truman Show. So that could just be me. We just have the Rabbi Orlofsky podcast 24 hours a day. Yeah. Luckily, I talk in my sleep. Now it's not so interesting because I had to get a CPAP machine. So a lot of what I say sounds like this. I basically sound like Bane from The Dark Knight. But turns out I need a CPAP machine. It's I was always tired, so the doctor said you should go and take a sleep apnea test. So I did, and they said, you only stop breathing 7 times an hour. That's not a lot. He says, but when you do, you stop for a half a minute and your oxygen saturation goes down to 60%. Now, when I had COVID, they made you check your oxygen saturation. And if it went under 90, they said to go to the hospital. And mine goes down 7 times an hour when I'm sleeping to 60%. So they got me the CPAP machine, which is just the most nightmarish way to live the rest of your life. Please do not remove the mask. It will be very painful for you. Anyway, so it's also tough, like, when if you want to just, like, you know, go to sleep, like, just lie down, you know, you have to hook yourself up to a machine every time, you know. Anyway, I don't have, like, the best mask, because, like, the best mask was more money, and I said, I'm not spending money on that, you know. I have, like, the cheap Chinese mask. Because that's the way I am. What do I need it for? That's how I told you that story. I'll tell it again because I just love the story. When I was, the surgeon came in and was discussing the surgery. So he says, okay, Wednesday morning, we're going to bring you in. And the operation will be about 4 hours. And then you'll be unconscious until Friday. So my daughter was getting married in like 2 weeks, you know. So they had a lot of things to do and to plan, and they were talking about who's going to be in the hospital and when. And I said, did you hear the man? I'm going to be, I'm going to be unconscious. Go home. Take care of what you have to. Show up Friday morning. Tell me you're outside my room saying to him, I'll never know the difference. And the doctor says, a Polish Yid. I didn't know we still had those. And then I realized my father would have said the same thing. My grandfather would have said the same thing, you know. So my father used to tell a joke. It was his favorite joke. His father's on the deathbed. The children are gathered around and they say, Dad, don't worry about it. We're going to have a beautiful levaya for you. You know, we'll get you a big fancy hearse. We'll get a limousine for the family. It'll be very nice. Second son says, what do we need a limousine for? We all have our own cars. Get a hearse for Dad, and then we'll all take our own cars. And the third son says, what do we need a hearse? I got a station wagon. I'll put Dad in the back, and everybody can drive. And the father says, get me my pants, I'll walk. No, I'm not spending money on some fancy mask. Well, what for? Because I need it every night when I sleep? Anyway, be that as it may. No idea why I brought that in, but it doesn't matter. We are coming towards the end of the year, and so this Motzi Shabbos we begin saying Slichos. I don't remember what I say. I've pointed this out in the past. I hear people quote me saying things that I have no recollection of ever saying, and I don't even know if I spoke about this recently. I don't know if I talked about this, but my daughter was listening to a shiur, and the person quoted me saying something I don't have any recollection of ever saying or even talking about. It was the Gemara with Repreda, where it says Repreda would, have this one Talmud, he had to teach him something 400 times. And one time the kid was distracted and he had to do it another 400 times. And a baskol came out and said to Repreda, because you taught this kid so many times and then you were so diligent, you'll either get, long life or a guaranteed place in Olam Haba. So the person giving the shiur said, so why did Repreda get the baskol? Why didn't the boy get the baskol? He says, Rabbi Orlofsky gave an answer once. He says, because it didn't want to have to repeat itself 400 times. That's a great answer. I don't ever remember saying it. I hear people quote things to me. I have no recollection of it. But so I know I wanted to talk about Slichos, with Slichos coming up. And so I did a little search in my own on my own channel to see if I'd ever spoken about Slichos. And apparently I had spoken about it. But I didn't do what I hope I'm going to do now for your benefit, and I hope it is for your benefit, because one of our avid listeners, he wrote in and he said, you spoke about how you would sit down with your daughter every day before Slichos and go through the Slichos and underline what we say, what we skip, what we do, how we do the whole thing. Maybe you could do that on the podcast. So I said, that sounds like a great idea, and that's what I planned on doing. And then I did a little search, and I see I did speak about Slichos 4 years ago. So I'm not going to repeat myself. No, I sure am. No, I'm not going to repeat myself. Anyway, just the strangest feeling of deja vu. Anyway, so I'm going to point out a few of the highlights that I mentioned that I think are important going into Slichos. But there is an aspect that I mentioned, and that's what a listener requested, and that's what I'm going to hopefully do with you today. But let's start off. This year is the shortest possible Slichos. For those of you who are not Slichos aficionados, you should be very happy to know. The minimum amount of Slichos are 4 days, and it has to start on Motzi Shabbos. And so the only way to get a minimum of 4 days is if Rosh Hashanah comes out on Wednesday night, like this year. Of course, it also means that you're going to have a 3-day yontif, but everything's a trade-off. I remember when I was speaking to a Sephardi friend of mine, and I said, you get to eat rice for Pesach. And he says, don't complain to me. Because of that, we have to say slichos for all of Elul. I'd rather give up rice for a week. So everything's a trade-off, as my father used to say, yeah? So this is the minimum amount. And people have been saying it for many years, probably know what to say, although not necessarily. There's this new phenomena I cannot wrap my head around. And like I say, I've been saying slichos for over 50 years. And at some point, they suddenly decided there are too many slichos. And they just start cutting out random slichos. And some of them are my favorite slichos. And I'm really not happy about it. So I have to literally search around to find minyanim that say not all the slichos, but at least all the slichos that they used to say when I was in yeshiva. You skip certain ones, but the rest of them they do say. So I'm going to go through the slichos. This is an opportunity for you to right now go and get your slichos book. This is the one I've been using for many years. It is soft covered. It has been taped together, but the tape is no longer holding together. And this is the one I use, and I use this one because I did this one year where I went and I underlined everything, particularly when you come to a piyut and you underline the chorus, because it doesn't always have the chorus. It usually just has one word of what you're supposed to repeat, and you have to repeat it. Yeah. So I have underlined those over the years. Yeah. You can see it over here. Yeah. Nafshi b'shelasi v'ami b'vakoshasi. And then all it does is write the word nafshi, so you have to keep going back to that line. So I underlined them over the years. Yeah. And Erev Rosh Hashanah, where there's a lot of slichos, so in most of the yeshivas, they skip them. And they give you out a list of the ones they're going to skip. And I wrote that in. So over here, by Slicha Lamed Gimel, it says skip. By Lamed Dalet, it has a little circle, which means say it. So I've been using this for many years, and it gives me some sort of a hold. What we're supposed to say. In the back page over here, I wrote when they Erev Rosh Hashanah to remove the chiramim, this chayavti, benidoi, min hashamayim. I wrote the little text over here, and everyone goes mutalach, mutalach. So I wrote that down. For me, it's come in handy. I know there are hard-covered ones. There are ones with perush from Hashem at that, but this to me is my slichos, and it's you have to make sure you have the right tool. When I'm speaking to the younger generation, and I try to explain this, the only reference that they can possibly use is when you go to a Livender's to buy your wand. So, the wand, every wizard has his wand that works best for him. Although he could use any wand, his wand, is made for him. Lahavdil. I have a fellow I know who's a Baltakeya, and he got good at it, and he decided he wants to be a real Baltakeya. And he says there's one place in Bnei Brak where they have all of the different shofars. He says, you pick up a shofar, you bring it to your lip. He says, nope, not that one. Try this one. Nope. It's mamish the way they described picking the wand, lahavdil, until you find the shofar. He goes, that's the one. He says, I put it to my mouth. I never miss a call. Comes out perfect. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but we all know there are certain ones that go better, some that go worse. So, you have to work to get it down. Some people, they bring in somebody just to do the first set of kolos. And then they get somebody for the rest of them, because once you've been yoytze d'iraisa, so they're all right. The attitude being shofar, so good. Anyway, so if you would like, I'm going to give you a chance to stop the video or the audio or the phone call, because I meet people all the time who tell me I don't have internet, but Torah Anytime has an option where you can call up to be able to listen to shiurim. So wherever you are now, put it on pause and go and get your slichas book, because we're going to go through slichas. Okay? That's what we're going to do. Doing this as a public service. I hope that you find this worthwhile. I will share maybe a few insights as we go along. But this is a technical thing that I think is important. I went to the Hebrew Academy of Nassau County, and until 6th grade, we davened in the classroom. And we didn't say Tachna. In 7th grade, they moved us into the minyan, right? It only went up to 9th grade at the time. And so there was the 7th, 8th, and 9th graders had a minyan. Anyway, I come in, and all of a sudden, after Shemona Esrei, everybody sits down and puts their hands on their arms. And I look around at everybody else in my class, and they're all going. So we all got down. We put our hands on our arms. Nobody knew what we were saying or why we were doing it, you know? So afterwards, I asked one of the 9th graders, what was that? He goes, I don't know. When I came in 7th grade, I noticed after Shemona Esrei, everybody put their hands on their arms. I don't know why. So knowing what you're saying and what you're doing and how to get it down, it changes everything, you know? If you've never taken the time to really study the Mishkan and what all the parts are and how they go together, or the Beis HaMikdash, and you never get down clearly what's going on over there, you have to bluff your way through. It's true with everything. So particularly when it comes to Slichos, which has such potential to be such a powerful thing, and very hard to find the right minyan that goes at the pace that you want. Even places where they daven slowly, for some reason, they do slichos in such a way that you can't possibly keep up with it. But one of the ways to help is the night before, go through the slichos for the next morning. And like I say, underline the line in the pismon you have to repeat. Look through it. Sometimes even it's kedai to read through the slicha so you have a little more idea what's going on. You're not looking at it for the first time. And the more preparation you put into it, and kumuvan, when it comes to the machzarim for Shana and Yom Kippur, the same thing. Don't be surprised when you walk in there and you haven't seen anything for a year and you're a little off. You know, make an effort as best as you can to try to be prepared. We spoke about this in the last podcast. The more that you are prepared before you go into it, the greater is going to be the experience that you have. So I'm going to hope you've gotten your slichos by now, and we're going to go through it. Now, the slichos are maybe 5 different types. I'm trying to think. The first night of slichos is different than the rest of the slichos we do before Rosh Hashanah. Aseres Yemei Tshuva is different than the slichos you do beforehand. Erev Rosh Hashanah is the longest slichos of the year, and as I mentioned, in yeshivas, they have a tendency to skip some of them. I've never been in a minyan where they say all of the slichos in Erev Rosh Hashanah. I've never seen it. I'm sure there must be. Erev Yom Kippur is a very short one. They keep it short on purpose because the avoda on Erev Yom Kippur is to eat, and we don't want to keep you in shul saying a lot of slichos. We want you to go out and eat. When I lived on Roshin, and I used to daven the Boston shul, so Meir Horowitz, who now is the Boston Rebbe, back then he wasn't yet. I don't know if this is a minig by all Hasidim, but he had big sheet cakes of honey cake. And at the end of davening, he, as you walk by, he gives everybody a piece of honey cake. You know, it's Erev Yom Kippur, you have to eat, you know. So when it comes to eating, I like to try to play to my strengths. You know, it's one of the things I do well. So we're going to go through how you do it. I'm going to start with Yom Sheni because the first night of Slichos is closer to the Aseres Yemei Tshuva Slichos. And not exactly, but closer. So I'm going to leave that one aside. And I'll start with Yom Sheni because Yom Sheni, Shlishi are going to be more or less the same. Revi is already Erev Rosh Hashanah. So we're only going to have 2 days, right? We're going to have Sunday night is a special one. There's Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. What am I talking about? Wednesday night is Rosh Hashanah. Wednesday night is Rosh Hashanah. So that means Tuesday night is our Rosh Hashanah Slichos. And Motzi Shabbos, right, Motzi Shabbos is Sunday. So there's Sunday night, Monday night. That's the only two that we have. Then it's our Rosh Hashanah. And then we go to Saras Tshuva. Okay, if you're looking in your Slichos, I'm starting with Yom Sheni. Ashrei. The Slichos starts Ashrei and Chatzi Kaddish. It's the same way that we start Mincha. Certain other tefillas, it has a tzura of a tefillah. There's Ashrei and a Chatzi Kaddish. And it's to the Yom Narayim Negin. Ashrei Vezecha Yalucha Selah Tilaz Hashem Yidabepi Recha V'Sashem Kodshel Yilam Ba'ed V'nachnu V'Rech Yom Me'atav Yadoi Lam Hallelujah Yizgadal V'Yizgadal Shmei Rabbo V'Yamad V'Rachurosei V'Yamlich Machusei V'Chayechonu Yom Echon V'Chayerucho Beis Yisrael. Right? And you do the Chatzi Kaddish. Then you come to the Psukim. A long collection of Psukim. L'cha Hashem Hatzdaka, and then Shomei Tefillah, and it goes for about 3 pages. Me, I get to shul early, and I start saying this before Slichas. Because there is no way, I have never been in a minyan. Maybe it's my dyslexia. I have never been in a minyan where I can say all 3 pages of this in the amount of time that they give you. Right? Now, there might be minyanim who go slower. I'm not sure that I would enjoy those more. Yeah? I would rather be the slowest guy in a minyan than be the person who finishes and hangs around for a while. And it ends. Haneshama lach ve'aguf shalach Hashem hazeh leman shemecha Sano Hashem Hashem hazeh leman shemecha Ma'avok kvod shemcha Ki el chanun v'rachum shemecha Leman shemecha Hashem V'salach la'avoneinu ki ravo. And these psukim, it's kedai to read them through. And like I say, you're going to have to leave yourself more time. I don't know how to get it. Yeah. If you, it's also nice to have somebody who knows how to do the slichas. There were certain minyanim where I was actually in the rotation. It was very exciting. They would let me get up and lead the slichas from time to time. Yeah. So, but you know, there are certain people. Somebody asked me once, what is Gehenna? So Rabbi Sinclair said, I don't think Gehenna is hot. I think it's just like a crowded room with one of those old air conditioners that don't really cool it off. And you just like feel the sweat slowly getting cold on you. And you just feel clammy. I said, well, that's not my Gehenna. My Gehenna is going to be this one old man who used to do slichos. He's going to be leading the slichos for all of eternity. Aneshama lach ve'aguf balach. Aneshama lach. Anyway, find a place that you enjoy. Now, if you live in a community where there's only one minyan, suck it up, my friends. There's nothing you can do about it. That's life, you know. You make the best of your situation. But if you have a choice, find one that goes at a pace that is comfortable for you, right? So that's the first part. Now, the way we do it during these first days are, we're going to do the Yud Gimel Midos, a Slicha. Yud Gimel Midos, a Slicha. Yud Gimel Midos, a Pismain, and Yud Gimel Midos. That's what we do. When I say a pismon, I mean it has a chorus and it is read responsively. And it's interesting because it's not the normal responsive for example, when they say Tehillim at the end of davening, right? Shalom Alay, Zesayin Ayorim, Me'ayin Yevo Ezri, and then everybody repeats, Shalom Alay, Zesayin Ayorim, right? That's responsively. Here, the Tzibur says it first. Now, it's a little tricky here, because the first thing, the Chazan says the first keter, and then everybody repeats that and does the next one. So you're always one ahead of the Chazan. So it's a little tricky, but we'll see that when we get to it. Now, most of them are introduced with the paragraph, Kel Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim. Yeah? And it usually finishes like this. El Reis Alanu Loima Shlosh Esrei Uschalanu Ayam Brish Shlosh Esrei Kehodat Alanu Mikadem Kemoshe Kasuv V'yared Hashem B'yanan V'yisatzei V'mosham V'yikra B'shem Hashem. And then everybody says V'yavo Hashem Apanav V'yikra. And then the Chazan says and then everyone says the Yud Gimel Midos together, right? That's true, except for the first one. The first one has a different paragraph. It does not start Kel Melech, it starts Kel Erech Apayim Ata. It's a slightly different paragraph. Otherwise, it ends the same. Vayikra b'shem Hashem v'sham ne'ema v'yavo Hashem apanav v'yikra, and you do Yud Gimel Midos. Now, if you're looking in your slichos, there's then these little things you say at the end. Im avonenu anu banu Hashem leman shemecha, etc. And then karachem al banim kain terachem Hashem aleinu. La Hashem v'sho amchoy v'chosecha sela Hashem tzvah ziman v'zgal go sela sela bach Hashem v'yendu. And then the Chazan says, you say it, and then the Chazan says it. Slach no lavon hazeh. Kegadol chasdecha v'chashed asazal mazem mitzrayim v'yadheina v'sham ne'ma v'yom Hashem salachti kidvarecha. And then there's a little paragraph. Hatei elahayos nacho shma b'kach necha reishma v'secha v'yasher dikro shivcha alecha, etc. And then you say a little paragraph. And I'll be very clear here. I'm saying this is the minhag lita. Because I think Minhag Poland, which is Nusach Sfard, they do this after every one of them. But by the Minhag Lita, they only do this on the first one. So the first one, after you did all those psukim, you do Kel Erech Apayim, Yud Gimel Midos, you do these little paragraphs, V'yom Hashem Salachti Yidvarecha, etc. They do not do it after the other Yud Gimel Midos. And then you have the first Slicha, Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu. And it goes through the slicha, which is not very long, and it ends. Koton Yaakov Adal, Yadu Echoli Nivzeh V'Chadal, Chaim Chesem Ha'ozum Migdal, Kashato Kaichacha Yigdal, Kel Melech Yoshev Gezer Rachamim, etc., etc. V'Yashem Apanav V'Yikra, and they do the Yud Gimel Midos, and then they skip the rest. If you're in the slicha and they're cutting to the Yud Gimel Midos, go to the Yud Gimel Midos. Yud Gimel Midos you have to say with the tzibur. And that is the ikar of slichos, is the Yud Gimel Midos. That's the most important part. Then you come to the next one, next slicha. And you go through the whole thing. Kamelech Yoshev Gezer Rachamim, V'yavo Hashem Apanav, and the Yud Gimel Midos. Now you come to the Pismon, right? So first the Chazan goes, Yisrael no Shaba Hashem, Shuas Olamim, Gam Hayom Yishavu Mipicha, Shochein Meraimim, Ki Ato Rav Slichos, Uval Rachamim. That's the chorus. See? It's underlined in mine. And so you repeat what he just said, and then you do the next part. Sharecha hem doivkim, kanim v'dalim, tzakun lachasham, kshoiv ka, shochen meulim, ke'atar rav slichai, zuval rachamim. He repeats it, and now you're always one paragraph ahead. and then Kel Melech Yoshev, and the Yud Gimel Midos, and that is Slichos on a normal day, right? Now, I'm stopping here because I'm going to contrast this to the Aseret Simei Tshuva. Okay? I'm not doing Erev Rosh Hashanah right now because that's a whole different ball of wax. So I'm going to Yom Sheni Aseret Simei Tshuva. The beginning is the same. Ashrei Yoshev Eisecha Yalucha Sela Laz Hashem Yidapi V'Yecho B'Sashem Kachali Lamboed V'Nach Nevarech Yom Yatav Yadalam Hallelujah Yizgadal Shmei Rabbah. Right? Okay. Then the same 3 pages of Psukim. L'cha Hashem B'Tzedakah Shemei Tfilah. Yeah. Neshama Malach, V'Guf Malach, Chusa Malach, etc. Now, when you finish that, there's another slicha that's added in before you get to the first Kel Erech HaPayim, right? During the first days, you go right to the Kel Erech HaPayim. There's another one, and it's called the Psicha. It's the opener. It's basically a slicha, but it's called an opener. Yeah? And you say that over there. And then there's another paragraph. Etc., etc. Then you do the Kel Erech HaPayim. You do the Yigmal Midos. And again, on this first one, you also do the next paragraph. Yeah, and even though it's the Aseret Simei Tshuva, it's the only time you do that. Then you come to another slicha. Now, the slichos, you don't see it so much. A standard slicha is more or less 4 lines. There's something called a shniya, and there's something called a shlishiyah. Let's see if I see one here. Samach Gimel is a shlishiyah, which means it is 3 phrases in it. It's a slicha, but it has 3 phrases. Elokim ein beltecha ledodorim memshaltecha v'la'ad kiyom brisecha. See? 3. B'yamincha ein ma'atzar yadcha lo siktzar el oineh batzar. And it goes like that through that. Where is a shniya? I'm flipping all around here. You'll forgive me, I hope. All right, well, I guess you'll just have to take my word for it. A shniya is, there's only 2 phrases in it, and that's why it's called a shniya, right? It's got 2. I'll find it when I don't need it. You know how it works. You ever hear that expression, it's always in the last place you look? Because why would you keep looking after you found it? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, it's the same idea. But so we now do, this is just called the slicha, right? Because it's got 4 parts to it. Ach b'chor mikveh Yisrael Hashem, Acha v'kedem am nosha b'Hashem, umadua boshesh yom ze kama idonai, l'shuascha kivisi Hashem. See, it's 4 parts. So you do the slicha, and then the Kel Melech, the Yud Gimel Midos, and they skip the rest. Then they do another slicha. That's a regular slicha. Aye b'yar demisi v'nimshalti b'chovai b'tiyuno milosi l'shon havai gud gudati makish keven kish umispa begavai karosh l'chali v'kolevav davoi. So you'll notice that I'm reading like a Chinaman. That's why it's an old expression. I don't know if you can allowed to say that anymore, but I'm old. So I read through these slichos the night before so that I don't end up stumbling on the words like I just did. Then again, Kel Melech, Yud Gimel Midos, and then another slicha, and this one is the Shlishiyah that I already mentioned. Then the Kel Melech and the Yud Gimel Midos, and then you do what's called a Shlomanis. Shlom Anis is also 4 parts, but it has a theme and it has so to speak, I call it a theme, not necessarily a chorus, but Eichucha lavo adecha va'ovdei luasecha lo azavuni li'ovdecha v'hema bikshu la'avridi mimcha miyichudecha v'ni lo azavti pikudecha. It's 4 long things, and it follows a certain theme. Now, some of these are, in my mind, among the most beautiful of all of the slichos, and I look forward to them every year. And like I say, these minyanim that today start to cut out slichos, they invariably cut out the Shlom Aniyos, which I think is one of the beautiful ones. So, for example, on Yom Shlishi, it's Ayin Gimel, is one of my favorites, Yerushalayim. And that's the theme. Yerushalayim es Hashem, Halali dagul meravois hadoresh merashis v'acharis begeshem nidvos menosayach daviyos tavnes heichel mechutavos pitzchu rananu yachdav charavois Yerushalayim benuya ki yer shechubra la bis yom ish ve'ish yulad ba v'hu yechonaneha el yon yisbar ksov amim el ayom zocha Hashem lebnei ayom as yom Yerushalayim. You see? And the whole theme is Yerushalayim, and to me, I find that just beautiful. Yom Revi'i, the Shlom Aniyos. I'm sorry, I'm doing this basically as a defense of the Shlom Aniyos, which they cut out. This one is Shalom. Shalom tishpois lanu osanu l'chaim l'choka kashua na'aroch l'fanecha tshuva tefilo tzedaka nechasa panecha b'Hashem Elokim lidavka v'yamase tzedaka. Shalom, shalom, shalom l'rachok v'lakarov el ir motza ir ktana u'melech gadol sovaval sor miskein v'chacham yamaled ir b'li lived sor yetzu samach titzor. Shalom, shalom rov lo'avei sor secha v'en lo momad veh Moshia es amecha ma'oz umanozu mikveh tishbar barachmim amcha yeshua Yaakov tzaveh v'yoshev amin b'nevei shalom. I'm just doing these shlomis again. I hope you will indulge me. If you don't, just go ahead. You don't have to. There's a beautiful one that goes through the Avos Nazikin and all those things, etc. Anyway, you do the Shlom Aniyos, Kel Melech, and Hashem Hashem. Now, there's every day of Asheres Tshuva, there's one slicha that's called the Akedah. And again, this is one of the ones that they skip when they start skipping them. When I was in yeshiva, we always said the Akedah. And every day is another slicha focusing on Akedah's Yitzchak. And I have to think it's also a very powerful thing. Followed by Kel Melech and Hashem Hashem. And then you come to the Pizmon like we had during the regular time. Yeah. And it has a little chorus, etc. And then the Kel Melech and the Yud Gimel Midos. Okay. Now, I'm going back to the couple of days beforehand because we will incorporate this also into Aseret Tshuva, but it's good just to see it in the first context. You start with the pasuk. You start with the paragraph. Hashem v'chasadecha. Yeah. When you finish that, the Chazan says, "Anos sashes aleinu chatos asher no aleinu v'asher chatanu," and everyone says, "Chatanu tzurenu slach lanu yotzrenu zechal lanu bris avos kasher amat v'zachati es brisi Yaakov v'yavs brisi Yitzchak v'yavs brisi Avraham v'eskar v'yavs eskar," and then zechal lanu is a whole collection of psukim, all of which I find to be very positive, talking about. Even when you go into Golus, I will not be disgusted by you. I will never again abandon you. Yeah. Circumcise our heart to love you. Throw water on us and we'll become pure. Erase all of our sins like clouds. erase all our sins for your sake. Halben chatoyenu kashaluk katzemer, whiten our sins like snow and like wool. Rachem aleinu v'al tashchisenu, k'moshe kasuv. Kabeis nidochenu, bring us back to Eretz Yisrael. Hashem shvosenu v'rachamenu, k'moshe kasuv. Yeah, and then the last one is, of course, the famous song. And when you're davening a slichas in the morning, they almost never have time to sing it. Sometimes on Yom Kippur they do. Havienu ahar kodshech v'samchenu beis tfilasecha k'moshe kasuv. V'haviyoi samel har kodshi v'simachtem bebeis tfilasi oloseichem v'zivcheim l'ratzon al mizbechi Ki beisi beis tefila yikara lecha ha'amim. Now they open the Aron Kodesh. Shema koleinu Hashem Elokeinu chuz rachem aleinu v'kabel rachem v'ratzon as tefila aseinu. Now for some reason they write the psukim out of order. It's very interesting. My slichos happens to have them in order. A lot of them don't. Hashivenu Hashem elecha v'nashuva, and then al tashlicheni milfanecha v'ruach kodecha, and al tashlicheni le'esikna kichos chalchenu al tazvenu. Those are all said responsively. The rest you say to yourself. Al tazvenu Hashem lekenu al techakmenu Hashem. That's it. Now you come to the vidui, and again, I think Nesach Sfarad, they say all of the vidois. When I was in yeshiva, we say one vidoi, and then we skip all the rest of the vidois. Right? And you go through that. Then there's a paragraph, Ashamnu Mikol, and then they say it again, and they say it 3 times. When I was in yeshivas, that's not how we did it. We skip instead to the paragraph Mashiach Tzidkecha, Micha Avdecha, Daniel Ish Chamudais, Ezra Soifer, Al Tazvenu. Then you come to the parts that the only way to get through it is to develop some rhythm. El Rachum Shemecha, El Chanun Shemecha, Bonik Re Shemecha, Asher Yisraman Shemecha, Selaman Mitocha, Selaman Brisacha, Selaman Godlach, V'Sifatacha, Selaman Dasach, Selaman Hodach, Selaman Vodach, Selaman. When you finish that, it's Anenu Hashem, Anenu, Anenu. Then you come to Misha Ana, Avinu Ba'Maria, Misha Ana, Liyitzchak, Misha Ana, Yosef, Misha Ana. And then you have Tachnun, and you do the Tachnun. And then when I was in yeshiva, they would skip these next parts. A friend of mine who's a chazan was very upset because he loves to sing Machnise Rachamim. Machnise Rachamim, Achnisu Rachamenu, Lifnei Baal Harachamim. So sing it to yourself, but again, if you're in these kind of minyanim, they skip it. And then you go to the Shomei Yisrael, and you finish up the Tachnun, and they do a Kaddish Sholem, and that is Slichos during the first days. On the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, it's a little different. You do the Zar Rachamecha, and then they have another Slicha called a Chatanu. When I was in yeshivas, we skipped Chatanu. Some places say it, some places don't. Interestingly enough, on Yom Kippur, you say Slichos throughout Yom Kippur, and when they say it after the Avoda, the Chatanu, that's the Asar Ruge Malchus. So there, everyone says it. But when I was in yeshivas, they would skip it, and then they come to Shema Koleinu, and the rest of it finishes out as it normally does. And that's it. I'm skipping Erev Rosh Hashanah because, there are different minhagim. There's one yeshiva, I forgot where it is, where they just say one slicha for the whole Erev Rosh Hashanah, and apparently they say it take a very long time to do it. But on average, Slichas Rosh Hashanah and L'Kavim Minyan Maigo usually takes about an hour. Some places it takes 45 minutes if they're much faster. But like I say, you can see in your local minyan how they choose to do it. If anybody needs, I will, put up the Yeshivisha list. Maybe we'll post that on the website if anybody wants to see the list, assuming you're saying Slichas at home and you can't be there. Erev Yom Kippur. A Slichas to warm your heart. The last Slichas of the year. Ashrei, Chatzi Kaddish, and then just the first paragraph, L'cha Hashem Tzedakah. You don't say all the psukim. Then a Kel Chapayim, Yud Gimel Midos. And then a Slicha. Oh, it's a Shniya. Oh, I found a Shniya. Adom Befok Doch, Enosh L'Bekarim, B'mitzay Adin Al Timtach. See, it's only two. Guf and Neshama Im Terivim, Dochu V'lo Yuchlu Kum. Then a Kel Melech, and a Yud Gimel Midos, and then another Slicha, and a Yud Gimel Midos, and then a Pismon. Then a Kel Melech, Yud Gimel Midos, and just the first paragraph of Zachor Rachamecha, not the whole thing, and then Shema Kolenu, and then the Oshamnu, and then just Mashiach Tzidkecha, just that paragraph, and then Kaddish Olim. And that's more or less the way the Slichos goes. I urge you, get your Slichos, read them through the night before. If you're saying Slichos at night, read them through the early evening before you go to the Slichos. The more you are prepared, the more you will appreciate it. A beautiful word I heard from Rabbi Leff, where after Shem Bar Yochai and his son were in the cave for 12 years, they came out and they started burning up everything. So Hashem says, go back into the cave for another year. He says, why? That's what made them come out and burn everything up. Why would you send them back to the cave? So Rabbi Leff says, you see that if you're not living Torah true, it's because you don't have enough Torah, not because you have too much Torah. The more Torah you have, the more you'll be. So the more prepared you are, the more meaningful the Slichos is going to be. So as we start off and say our Slichos, you should have a Slichos that's your Slichos for the rest of your life, that you underline, that you keep with you, that you're able to say the Slichos. And like I say, it is something that is so rejuvenating for your soul. It is so positive. People have a negative image of Slichos, and I think it's a mistake. And the more that we appreciate the Slichos and we see what we're saying, and you get to see the words and the cadence and the music and the poetry, it's something that is extremely uplifting. Okay, and now we come to the question and answer portion of our program. By Anonymous, can we be mechazek Melava Malka without food? So the short answer is Melava Malka is supposed to be a Suda. However, having said that, Achilas Gasa is not called eating. So if you indulged over Shabbos, and if you remember when we had our series on Shabbos, when we had our series on Shabbos, we mentioned that, you should pace yourself throughout Shabbos to make sure you can still eat Melava Malka. That is certainly true by a 3-day yontif coming up. And for those of you in America, 3-day yontifs, you have to pace yourself, because otherwise, by the end, you'll be so stuffed that it's mamash achilas gasa, and achilas gasa is not called eating. So if you're so stuffed that you feel like if I eat, I'm going to throw up, then do not eat. It makes no difference if you eat or not. It's not called eating. So if not, so sit down and say Divrei Torah, sing Zmiras, do whatever it is that you can do to be Mechavid Melava Malka, light candles, whatever you can do to be Mechavid Melava Malka, but ideally it should be a Suda. But I'll tell you one of the worst things that happened. It's not really the worst things, but one of the more embarrassing. It wasn't even more than embarrassing. It's something that happened to me. I was Long Island director of NCSY, and the New York Times was writing an article on kids who become frum and the tensions that exist in the family. And the religion editor of the New York Times chose to come and speak to me. 3 times he came, each time for an hour and a half. And he kept pounding, And I said to him, there's almost never any problems. When there is problem, it's only because there were problems in the relationship beforehand, et cetera, et cetera. And I made all the points. All of it made sense. By the 3rd time, when he was pounding me already, my defenses were down already from being asked the same question. I see this is how interrogation works, So finally I said, I don't understand what you're asking me. What happens if the parents tie the kid down and shove a piece of pork down his throat? Is that what you're asking me? I said, what can you do? You do the best you can, but if it's no, it's no. I mean, what do you want? He interviewed everybody in this article. Anybody who had ever worked in Kew from every organization. And everybody said everything that I had said. And the last quote in the entire article was, however, Rabbi Dovid Orlofsky, the regional director of Long Island NCSY, said at the end of the day, quote, if it's no, it's no. My father-in-law, who had read the article in the New York Times, he says, I saw you were quoted in the New York Times. What did you mean? Since then, I have been very wary of the media. And I should stress, when I say the media, I mean also the frum media. I used to write a column in the Hamodia, and I never had a bad experience at the Hamodia. And in fact, when people would write letters attacking me, they would show me the letter first and say, do you want us to publish it or not? Because if not, we won't publish it. I thought that is such a menschlich thing to do, There are some publications who say it's our job to inform the public. No, it's not. You're frum. There's the Isurim of Lashon Hara. There's Kavod Adam. There's so many things that are involved over here. You're a journalist. That's an evil term, But they would show it to me. And I would very often write a column in response to it, etc. They would give me a chance to respond on the spot. There's a different Jewish publication that I have had issues with over the years. There's more than one, I have to say. They asked me to write an article, and I said, no, I don't want to write for you. When I see them print a article, a letter to the editor where the person is attacking Rav Pam because he said something about Lubavitch, and some Lubavitcher wrote it and said, who's this guy Pam? And I said, you write that? You publish that? Zaya chutzpah? So there were things like this that just got me. So I said no. So it was some sort of advice column. So they said, okay, we'll call you up and just ask you the question, and then we'll write it up. Okay. I agreed to it. Not full-heartedly, but I did. Anyway, they then printed a letter to the editor of the person attacking what I said in this advice column, who didn't understand what I was saying. They didn't give me a chance to respond. And then next time they called me up, I said, nothing. I'm having nothing to do with your publication. This is what you do. This is how you distort what people say, and you allow people to attack people. What kind of business is this? This is not Torah. I'm sorry. This is not Torah. There is no Torah value to print anything that somebody wants to say and attack somebody who went and wrote something 9 out of 10 times anonymously. Chutzpah. This infuriates me. I don't know if that's coming across. I get very upset about this, So that's why my experience with the New York Times, unfortunately, was echoed with a Torah publication that I just couldn't believe that I'm getting the same response over here, that somehow we feel it's okay in the name of journalism to attack people. Chas v'shalom, disgusting. Has no place in the Jewish world. These things should be banned from homes. I'm sorry. It doesn't belong in a Torah home. I have not, and I've looked for it. I have not been able to find terrible things in the Hamodia. They have a warm place in my heart. And therefore, I left in my tzavah. I left a lot of things in my tzavah. But one of the things I left was anyone who is a family member or considers themselves close to me, do not speak to any Jewish publication when I die. Let them make up whatever they want and put it on and put it in their stupid publication. I don't want anybody to participate and give them ammunition that they can twist out of context and turn it into something horrible. Disgusting. These things should be banned. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little emotional. I don't know. Melava Malka just always gets to me. All right. We have time for another question by Adina R. Can the Rav discuss why the Shevatim have names which mostly reference pain? Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, and so on. Sure. Because can you imagine that these two sisters get married to the same guy and they want to build Klal Yisrael? That's their goal. And they take whatever they're feeling and put it into their children because more than anything, they want to build Klal Yisrael. So was it competitive in that sense? Obviously not, because when Leah had 6 children and she saw she was going to have another child and Rachel would only have one, she davened that child should turn into a girl so that Rachel would have the schus of having the next Shevet. So, of course, they wanted to build Klal Yisrael. And so when you have a name like Reuven, and there's 2 ways of understanding that. Reuven, Rashi says, could be, look, now I've given you a son, so now you'll love me. Or Reuven, look at the difference between my oldest son and Yitzchak's oldest son, who was Esav. Look at the difference between them. Yeah? And Shimon is Hashem will hear, he hears my pain, but it means he's going to hear all of Klal Yisrael. Levi is Leviah. Now my husband will come to me, but not just my husband. Now HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come to Klal Yisrael. He's going to lead us. Shevet Levi is going to be the leader. And Yehuda is that you give praise. So they took their own feelings and emotions and put it into the names. That's obviously an important thing. You know, I know people who do this when they have a child. They want a name that they feel is going to express how they feel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, gave me a child. Some people just, name, after their people in their family came beforehand, Sometimes it's hard for someone to name Yentel Zlata, but when some people just give family names, but other people, they want to give a name that expresses how I feel that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, gave me this opportunity. It was something special. So the names function on a lot of different levels. So we just had this, that Shiloh comes before Yerushalayim. And Shiloh is V'chol HaRoyeh, because you have to see the destination before you're going. First comes seeing. You have to see what the goal is. Then you have to hear what it is, because Shmiya is understanding. Seeing is, okay, that's where I'm going. Shmiya is the understanding, and then Leviah is we go there. Lech lecha el ha'aretz asher erka. Go to the land I'm going to show you. First I'll show it to you, then you'll go it. And he sees the mountain in the distance. Speaking about Har Moriah. You see it, and then you go there. There's a process of going on. So the names of the Shevatim, yes, they took their feelings, as parents very often do when they have a child. It's, when Kanada Hara, me and my wife get together with our children and grandchildren, and you look around, it's something that's just so inspiring just to be able to see it. Last week, I read a letter from this woman who talked about how her children were like, please don't give me any money, Mom. And she says, that's nachas. Oh, yeah. There's the idea of you turn around and you look and you see what you managed to accomplish. So yeah, of course, you're always going to put your own feelings into it. And the Imahos did it because, look, Sarah was an akara until she was machnis saras l'toch beso. She had to give her slave to Abraham to marry, and in that sacrifice, whatever that pain was, she was able to have children. Rivka was childless for 10 years, davening, painful. Rachel was childless for years, and he gave her shivcha to Yaakov, to have that same thing. But Leah already felt pain. She didn't have to go through the pain of childlessness. A good friend of mine, Rabbi Friedman, wrote a sefer talking about childlessness in the Tanakh, and it's a sefer of tzaddik translated with a parish. I'm going to have him on the show talk about it. It's a very powerful thing. But Leah already felt on some level less loved. Yaakov loved him, but it's just his love for Rachel was so strong that she felt unloved by comparison. And so that pain allowed her to have children, and the majority of the children of Klal Yisrael, right? 6, good half of them, more than any one of the other wives that Yaakov had, because she was able to take that energy and put it towards having children. And that's it for this episode. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can leave a comment, sign up for one of our online shiurim. You could sponsor an episode. We're only able to do this show because of our sponsors. We love you. Mwah. And you could sponsor a question and answer. You could sponsor a Parsha in 5. You can ask a question. And again, we're waiting for responses if people would be interested. We were talking about a shiur in Pirkei Avos. I only got 2 responses so far. Or would you be interested in every now and then having someone come in and speak about politics and events here in Eretz Yisrael? Would that something that would be interesting to people? So we're waiting to hear from all of you. You can leave those comments. And that's it for now. Ksivach Simcha Tova for everybody. It should be a beautiful Gebench to Yor, and you should be starting your slichas, and it should be very meaningful to you. And until next time, I am David Orlofsky, and this has been the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.